want you to take a second right now and just imagine your life in the year 2041. Like, really picture it. You wake up and your smart mirror has uh, already analyzed your vitals.
Yeah, it's tweaking your breakfast nutritional profile before you even hit the kitchen.
Exactly. And your commute is completely autonomous. Your work involves, seamlessly conversing with these digital avatars that parse millions of data points in milliseconds while you just focus entirely on the creative direction of a project. We are not talking about some far-off science fiction or like a fantasy movie with flying cars and laser
Right,
beams.
definitely no laser beams.
No, we are talking about a deeply tangible, highly probable reality shaped entirely by artificial intelligence.
It feels like a massive leap, right? But the foundational layers of that world are being poured right now. I mean, 20 years isn't really an eternity in technological terms. We're already seeing the raw prototypes of these systems operating in our daily lives. The infrastructure is actively being built all around us.
Which is exactly the mission of our deep dive today. We are exploring some incredible notes and excerpts based on the book AI 2041 by Kai-Fu Lee and Qiufan. The goal here is simple, really. We want to give you a shortcut to understanding the 5 most powerful insights from this material.
Yeah, looking at how artificial intelligence will fundamentally rewire our work, our relationships, our healthcare, our creativity, and, well, society itself over the next 2 decades.
Because understanding those concepts now, today, is the ultimate leverage. It is literally the dividing line separating the people who fear the future from the people who are actually going to thrive in it. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with a concept that feels almost like a paradox. The authors argue that as AI becomes exponentially more powerful, it is actually going to disappear.
Yeah, this is the phenomenon of AI evolving into invisible infrastructure. Right now, we still treat artificial intelligence as a distinct, isolated tool. You open an app on your phone, you actively type a prompt into a large language model.
Right, you intentionally generate an image.
Exactly. It requires a deliberate, conscious interaction. It feels like a hammer or a calculator that you pick up to do a job and then put back down.
But the sources say that paradigm completely flips. AI won't feel like a separate piece of technology you have to boot up. It's going to become embedded into the everyday systems we depend on, just quietly operating behind the scenes. It kind of makes me think about indoor plumbing or the electrical grid.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right, like humanity once marveled at a light bulb. It was pure magic. People would just stare at it in awe. Today, we only ever notice electricity when the power goes out. We just walk into a room and expect it to light up. So will AI become so deeply ingrained in our physical and digital systems that we literally forget it's there?
What's fascinating here is that the disappearance isn't just psychological, it's architectural. We are moving toward a world of ambient computing. Deep learning models are being compressed to run on edge devices, meaning the intelligence won't just live on massive servers in the cloud, it will live in the sensors in your walls. Yeah, in your car's steering wheel, in the fabric of your jacket. The technology becomes invisible because the interface disappears. You stop actively prompting, and the environment just begins reacting and anticipating.
I mean, I have to admit, that actually sounds a bit terrifying. Like, if it's completely invisible, how do we even know it's there to manage it? If a power grid fails, the lights go out. It's obvious. But if an ambient AI subtly fails, say it, I don't know, misallocates resources or makes a flawed assumption about our health data behind the scenes, how would we even notice before the damage is done?
You're hitting on the exact danger the authors warn about. When a system becomes as assumed as the air we breathe, whoever designs that system holds immense unquestioned power over how society functions.
Yeah.
If you don't understand the invisible infrastructure, you are entirely at its mercy.
Right.
People who recognize how these data feedback loops operate today, while they are still visible and, occasionally clunky, they're the ones who gain enormous leverage.
So for you listening, this is your strategic advantage. Learning how these models categorize data, how they make probabilistic decisions right now, is like looking at the blueprints of a massive skyscraper before the drywall goes up.
Yeah, exactly.
Once the drywall is up, you're just trusting the architect that the load-bearing walls are where they should be.
That's a great way to visualize it. And that leads us to the natural next question. If AI is becoming the invisible digital plumbing of society, what exactly is flowing through those pipes?
Well, according to the material, the answer is extreme hyper-customization.
Personalization is about to reach an unprecedented scale. We aren't just talking about targeted ads here. The sources detail a reality where AI increasingly customizes foundational aspects of human life specifically for the
Those
individual.
education curriculums, right?
Yeah, curriculums that rewrite themselves in real time based on a student's eye tracking and comprehension speed. Or healthcare treatments synthesized entirely for your specific genetic makeup and real-time biometric data. Even entertainment media dynamically generated to appeal to your specific emotional state in that exact moment.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I am actually going to play devil's advocate here. I read those examples in the text, and my first thought was, isn't that exactly what we want?
A lot of people feel that way.
I'd rather have an algorithm perfectly tailor a curriculum so a kid doesn't get left behind in math class. I'd love it if a streaming service just generated a perfectly paced thriller movie for me instead of forcing me to scroll through a generic menu for 45 minutes on a Friday night. Like, why is it inherently bad to let the algorithm take the wheel and perfectly curate our reality?
It's an entirely fair argument.
Mm.
The benefits in efficiency and, friction reduction are massive. But the authors highlight that this level of convenience carries a severe hidden cost. The mechanism behind hyper-customization relies on a continuous data feedback loop.
Okay.
The system learns what you like, it feeds it to you, you consume it, and that consumption reinforces the system's model of who you are. The problem is that over time, the algorithm doesn't just predict your desires, it begins to define them.
Like a funhouse mirror that slowly changes your real face to match the reflection.
That's an incredible analogy, yes. When an algorithm perfectly predicts what you want to see, it is also flawlessly deciding what you don't see. It completely curates your reality. You become dependent on the system to tell you what you enjoy, what you should care about, and even how you should feel.
It's just wild to think about.
It maps your psychological triggers, your biases. You end up living in a customized echo chamber that feels incredibly comfortable, but is entirely isolated from shared human reality.
So it's not just holding up a mirror, it's gently nudging us down very specific, highly predictable paths. It trains us to be predictable because, well, predictable users are easier to monetize.
That is the core trade-off.
Yeah.
So the guidance for the listener is to be ruthlessly intentional about the algorithms shaping your attention. These personalized systems can vastly improve your life by removing friction, but they will quietly dictate your behavior if you interact with them passively.
Right. You have to actively introduce randomness into your life. You have to curate your curators. You
Yeah.
always have to remind yourself that an algorithm's goal isn't your personal growth, it's optimization. And if it's optimizing your entertainment and your shopping in the background, that begs a massive question about what we actually do all day. Like, if AI is handling the customized thinking and operating silently like electricity, what happens to our daily grind? What brain power is actually left for us?
That is the anxiety driving so many headlines right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
The assumption is that human jobs will simply vanish and we'll be left with nothing to do. But the authors present a much more nuanced perspective based on the actual mechanics of artificial intelligence. Human jobs won't disappear in a sudden wipeout. They will fundamentally evolve.
Because AI is built to automate the mundane. It's a pattern recognition machine. It is going to eat the repetitive tasks.
And by absorbing those repetitive tasks, the premium placed on uniquely human traits completely skyrockets. AI operates brilliantly in the realm of explicit knowledge, processing massive data sets, running complex simulations, but it fails entirely at tacit knowledge.
Doesn't have lived experience.
Right, no empathy or true adaptability in chaotic, undefined environments.
So what does this all mean? I like to think about the invention of the digital spreadsheet. When VisiCalc and Excel first came out, people panicked. The narrative was that it was the end of the accounting profession.
Oh, absolutely. It was a huge panic.
But the spreadsheet didn't destroy accountants. It just killed the robotic part of their job. It killed doing math by hand. And because accountants didn't have to spend 40 hours a week adding up columns with a pencil, they were freed up to do complex strategic financial modeling. They became business advisors. AI isn't going to kill work. It is just going to kill the robotic parts of our jobs.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the future of work isn't humans versus machines. It is about augmentation. It's combining human judgment with AI capabilities to create a partnership. Imagine a doctor. The AI can instantly process 10,000 medical journals, cross-reference them with the patient's entire genetic history, and suggest a highly probable diagnosis in seconds.
Which a human doctor could never do in a single lifetime.
Exactly. But the AI cannot look a terrified patient in the eyes, read their body language, and guide them through a complex, emotionally devastating treatment decision with empathy. The machine handles the data processing. The human handles the ethical judgment, the emotional intelligence, and the complex interpersonal communication.
It's the ultimate co-pilot. But, you have to know how to fly the plane first, and you have to be willing to share the cockpit.
Those who resist the co-pilot will simply be outcompeted by those who embrace it. So the immediate actionable takeaway for the listener's career is to stop building purely repetitive skills. Stop trying to be a faster data processor than a machine.
Oh,
You
yeah.
will lose that game.
Every single time. Instead, you need to pivot your professional development toward emotional intelligence, complex problem solving, cross-disciplinary thinking, and strategic adaptation. Those are the domains where human judgment remains utterly indispensable.
Uniquely human.
Yeah. But that raises a pretty dark counterpoint. If our entire future relies heavily on combining human judgment with AI, what happens when human judgment completely fails at a systemic level?
And this leads us straight into the new class of ethical problems that AI introduces. As these systems scale up and integrate into our infrastructure, issues like surveillance, misinformation, systemic bias, and wealth inequality become exponentially harder to contain. The technology essentially acts as an amplifier for both human progress and human flaws.
I feel like pop culture has profoundly failed us here. Like, we are all conditioned by movies to fear the wrong thing. We're convinced the ultimate threat is a rogue, super intelligent robot uprising.
We're basically waiting for a machine to become conscious and decide it wants to destroy humanity.
Right. But the actual threat outlined in the source material is far more boring and honestly vastly more dangerous. It's just bad human incentives like corporate greed or political manipulation put on an algorithmic steroid cycle.
This raises an important question. What exactly are we telling these systems to optimize for? Remember, artificial intelligence is primarily an optimization engine. It does exactly what we program it to do incredibly well. It is like a heat-seeking missile.
That's a scary thought.
It is. A heat-seeking missile is a brilliant piece of technology, flawlessly executing its objective. But if you point it at the wrong target, its brilliance is exactly what makes it so destructive.
So if a tech company tells its AI to optimize for user engagement on a social media platform without explicitly programming a deeply nuanced ethical framework,
The AI quickly discovers, purely through mathematical trial and error, that human psychology responds most intensely to outrage, fear, and misinformation. It doesn't maliciously decide to polarize society. It simply solves the math equation for maximum engagement. The missile hits the target we gave it. Optimization without an ethical boundary can fundamentally damage civilization.
and the same applies to bias. If you train an AI on historical hiring data to optimize finding the quote-unquote most successful candidates, and that historical data is steeped in decades of human prejudice against a certain demographic,
The AI will automate and scale that bias across millions of job applications in an instant. It assumes the historical bias is a feature of success, not a flaw. Again, it is not a machine harboring prejudice. It is a mathematical scaling of the flawed human intentions and historical inequities that fed it. The ultimate danger of AI is its incentives, not its intelligence.
which means the challenge for you, the listener, is to constantly interrogate the systems influencing your decisions. You cannot afford to be naive. You need to understand exactly who benefits from the algorithms you interact with. If a service is free and it is hyper-customized to perfectly predict your behavior, you have to ask, what is the underlying incentive of the corporation or government providing this?
Absolutely.
They are optimizing for something, usually their bottom line or their political stability, not your mental health.
Recognizing those incentives is the first step toward the final and perhaps most vital realization the authors present. With all these amplified risks of systemic bias, surveillance, and algorithmic control, we have to ask whether we are just helpless passengers on this technological bullet train or if we are actually in the driver's seat.
I think there is a dangerous creeping fatalism right now. People talk about artificial intelligence like it's a weather event, like it's a hurricane forming off the coast, and all we can do is board up the windows, hunker down, and hope it doesn't destroy our house. But we cannot afford to be passive. We are actively building the hurricane.
The authors are emphatic that humanity must decide what future it wants. The trajectory of AI development is not an inevitable, predetermined destiny. Human choices will entirely dictate the outcome.
Right, we choose.
Yes, the government's drafting regulatory frameworks, the companies establishing safety policies, the engineers selecting training data, and the consumers deciding which platforms to fund with their attention. These human decisions are engineering the future. Values and responsibility matter far more than the raw technological compute power.
Because when you zoom out and look at all of this together, the AI vanishing into our infrastructure, extreme personalization rewriting human behavior, the evolution of the modern worker, the weaponization of incentives, it leads to one staggering conclusion. AI is not just a new category of software. It is a total redesign of human civilization. It is rebuilding the entire framework of how we interact, how we govern, and how we find meaning.
The future will be engineered by those who understand the systems behind it. That is why it is so crucial to reclaim your agency in an increasingly automated world.
Which means we are urging you, the listener, to learn enough to participate intelligently in these decisions. You do not have to know how to code neural networks in Python to have a voice, but you absolutely need to understand the stakes. You have to participate in the decisions shaping our reality, whether that is through how you vote, where you spend your money, or simply what level of ambient technology you allow into your living room.
Let's pull all of this together into a practical survival kit for the listener, drawing directly from the sources we've unpacked today.
Okay, number one, learn the mechanics of the invisible infrastructure. Educate yourself on how recommendation algorithms and data feedback loops operate so you aren't manipulated by systems you can't see.
Number 2, develop the skills that complement AI rather than compete with it. Shift your professional focus heavily toward emotional intelligence, cross-disciplinary problem solving, and strategic leadership. Be the human counterpart the AI needs to partner with.
Number three, furiously protect your attention in a hyper-personalized environment. Don't let the sheer convenience of a curated reality turn into algorithmic dependency. Actively seek out perspectives and media that the algorithm wouldn't naturally feed you.
Number 4, constantly question the incentives behind the technology you use. Always ask yourself who is benefiting financially or politically from the optimization metrics of the platforms you engage with.
And finally, number five, stay highly adaptable. The pace of technological change is not going to slow down. It is only going to accelerate. Adaptability is going to be your most critical survival skill.
It is the one trait that will ensure you thrive rather than just survive.
But that actually brings up a final lingering thought I want to leave you with to mull over. We opened by asking you to imagine that deeply tangible reality in 2041, fully shaped by AI. The sources have made it clear that convenience always comes with profound trade-offs, and that human adaptability is our ultimate saving grace.
Yes, absolutely.
But think about the tension here. If artificial intelligence eventually optimizes our lives to remove all daily friction, if our digital plumbing works flawlessly, our entertainment perfectly soothes us without effort, our work is perfectly augmented, and our environment anticipates our every physical need, what happens to human resilience? When every minor inconvenience is perfectly solved by an invisible algorithm before we even consciously register the problem, do we slowly, collectively lose the very adaptability that the authors say is absolutely required to survive this new world?
That is the ultimate paradox. We are building machines to remove the friction that historically built our character.
Something to think about the next time your phone flawlessly predicts exactly what you want to do. Stay curious, stay adaptable, and stay ahead of the system shaping tomorrow.